Ukrainian Beaver drones bypass Su-30s, crippling Tuapse terminal in $1.3 billion blow. Today, a single Ukrainian drone operation in the Black Sea quietly dismantled one of Russia's most critical energy nodes, not through overwhelming firepower, but through physics, patience, and deliberate planning. What initially appeared to be a routine maritime drone strike evolved into a cascading failure across multiple layers of Russian defense, including fighter interception, long-range surface-to-air missiles, and electronic warfare systems. By the end of the morning, a major oil terminal that handled a significant portion of Russia's seaborne crude exports was burning and rendered inoperable for the foreseeable future. Some estimates place the combined damage, disruption, and export losses at approximately $1.3 billion. To understand how this outcome became unavoidable, the sequence must be traced carefully from the beginning. The operational timeline begins at 6:30 AM local time. At that moment, a swarm of Ukrainian Beaver one-way attack drones was already deep into its transit across the central Black Sea, moving eastward toward Russia's Tuapse oil terminal. The drones were following pre-programmed routes designed to bring them directly toward the facility's deep water piers, offshore loading arms, and tankers moored alongside the terminal. Up to this point, the mission had unfolded exactly as Ukrainian planners intended. The drones were flying at a modest cruising altitude, high enough to conserve fuel and extend range, but low enough to avoid early detection while maintaining disciplined spacing and strict radio silence. Their navigation systems followed a mission profile refined over months of preparation, testing, and intelligence collection. At the same time, Russian air defenses were already active. 2 Su-30 multi-role fighter jets were airborne on combat air patrol over the coastal sector. These aircraft were flying a standard racetrack pattern inside a defined cap box, a block of airspace intended to intercept threats approaching from the sea. This defensive geometry reflected long-standing Russian doctrine, built around the assumption that future threats would resemble past ones: high-altitude, high-speed bombers, or strike aircraft rather than small, slow drones operating close to the surface. The first indication that something was wrong came when the lead Su-30's radar detected faint and inconsistent anomalies at long range. At approximately 120 miles, the fighter's sensors registered weak, fleeting indications where the airspace should have been empty. These were not firm tracks, but subtle irregularities, returns too small and unstable to classify. The flight lead immediately rolled into a sharp banking turn, recognizing that even weak anomalies could indicate an unconventional threat. Based on projected flight paths, once the targets descended towards the sea surface near the coast, radar detection would become far more difficult due to surface clutter. Both fighters began descending from their patrol altitude, advancing throttles, while deliberately avoiding afterburner to preserve fuel. Fuel management was now critical. The pilots understood that they would likely have only one viable interception window before fuel constraints forced disengagement. At roughly 90 miles, the lead pilot switched his radar from standby to active search mode, increasing transmission power and expanding the scan volume. The radar began sweeping the airspace ahead, probing for any object capable of reflecting its signals. Initially, the radar display showed nothing actionable. The pilot widened the scan pattern, trading refresh rate for broader coverage. The limitation was rooted in physics. The Su-30's radar relied heavily on Doppler processing, detecting targets by measuring how quickly they moved relative to the aircraft. Fast jets produced strong Doppler shifts that were easy to isolate. These drones, cruising at roughly 150 knots, generated Doppler signatures barely distinguishable from the movement of ocean waves. The radar's sea clutter suppression filters, designed to remove unwanted surface noise, were also filtering out the drones. From high altitude, the fighters could theoretically detect large aircraft hundreds of miles away. Against slow, low-flying drones, effective detection range collapsed. By 6:34 AM, a faint but critical cue appeared, not on radar, but on the infrared search and track system. Against the cool surface of the early morning sea, more than a dozen small heat signatures flickered into view. These were not solid locks, but intermittent thermal cues, suggesting the drones were still at slightly higher altitude. At this moment, the fighters had closed the distance rapidly, placing the drones at approximately 38 miles relative to the lead aircraft. The drones were approaching the planned point where they would begin their terminal descent. The flight lead pushed his aircraft into a steep dive, descending rapidly through 25,000 feet, then 20,000, then 15,000. At the same time, the drones initiated their own descent profile, transitioning toward sea-skimming flight. Seconds mattered. The Su-30 leveled out at approximately 12,000 feet, aligning with the densest cluster of targets as both aircraft and drones converged in space. Inside the cockpit, the pilot's heads-up display showed the gun reticle bouncing across multiple small targets as they dropped lower. With radar tracking unreliable and infrared cues fading, the pilot relied on visual acquisition and firing geometry. He fired a short, controlled burst from the aircraft's 30mm cannon. The shells travelled nearly a mile before one found its mark, striking a drone and tearing it apart mid-air. Debris scattered and fell into the sea. It was a successful engagement, but the fleeting nature of the opportunity was immediately clear. Moments later, at a pre-planned point well offshore from Tuapse, the surviving drones executed their programmed maneuver. They descended rapidly from roughly 2,000 feet into true sea-skimming flight, settling near 60 meters above the surface. From the fighter pilot's perspective, the targets seemed to dissolve. Radar returns merged into surface clutter, and infrared signatures became intermittent as the drones blended into the thermal background of the water. At the same time, the swarm split laterally, with elements diverging left and right to complicate interception and force the fighters to divide attention and fuel. Each Beaver drone relied on a radar altimeter, sampling the water surface roughly 40 times per second, maintaining precise altitude control. As waves rose beneath them, the drones climbed. As troughs passed, they descended. From a radar standpoint, they became nearly indistinguishable from the sea itself. The flight lead attempted velocity search mode, instructing the radar to ignore stationary clutter and focus on objects moving within a specific speed band. Instead of clarity, the display filled with false returns from wave crests, wind-driven spray, and seabirds skimming the surface. The wingman descended further, to around 8,000 feet, attempting to improve engagement geometry. This decision carried a cost. Su-30 engines were optimized for high-altitude cruise, not sustained low-level flight. Fuel consumption rose sharply. Both aircraft had been airborne since 4:30 AM, and reserves were dwindling. With no reliable tracking solution, and no margin for a second attack run, ground control made the decision. At 6:37 AM, both fighters were ordered to disengage and return to their patrol station. After several minutes of maneuvering and one brief firing opportunity, Russian fighters had destroyed exactly one drone. 23 continued towards the coast, effectively invisible to airborne interceptors. The next defensive layer lay inland. Approximately 53 miles from Tuapse, an S-300 Air Defense Battalion command post began tracking intermittent cues handed off from coastal sensors and the fighter patrol. The battalion's primary surveillance asset, the 64 N6E Big Bird radar, shifted from wide area search to focused sector scanning. Designed to detect large, fast aircraft at extreme ranges, the radar now faced a fundamentally different problem. Each Beaver drone presented a radar cross-section comparable to a large seabird. Even under ideal conditions, detection range dropped sharply. At 6:40 AM, radar operators observed unstable contacts that appeared, disappeared, merged, and separated with each sweep, Automatic tracking systems, optimized for supersonic aircraft and cruise missiles, struggled to maintain stable tracks on slow, low-flying targets, repeatedly dipping below the radar horizon. The curvature of the Earth imposed hard limits. Drones flying at roughly 60 meters altitude could only be seen for brief windows as they rose above the radar horizon. That left only minutes to confirm tracks, assign fire control radars, and authorize engagement against more than 20 targets. The battery commander faced a stark calculation. Each 48 N6E2 interceptor missile cost approximately $2 million, while each drone cost roughly $50,000. At 6:42 AM, with the leading drones inside approximately 65 kilometers, the commander authorized engagement based on the best available data. 4 missiles launched in rapid succession, climbing steeply on lofted trajectories. This profile was intended to allow the missiles to approach from above, reducing sea clutter interference during the terminal phase. One missile succeeded, destroying a drone that briefly climbed while maneuvering around surface traffic. The second missile locked onto wind-driven spray and self-destructed. The third and fourth missiles failed to acquire valid targets, as the swarm dispersed across a wider front and sank deeper into clutter. In total, 4 missiles were expended to destroy a single drone, millions of dollars in interceptors for a single low-cost target. An unfavorable exchange by any measure. By 6:45 AM, the remaining drones were inside 30 kilometers, effectively beyond the S-300's practical engagement envelope against such low, slow targets. Russia's final defensive layer was electronic warfare. At 6:50 AM, the Pol 21 network activated around Tuapse, not just jamming satellite navigation, but corrupting it through deceptive signals. Satellite signal strength remained high, but the position solutions became unreliable, consistent with spoofed timing rather than simple signal denial. The drones detected GPS corruption and transitioned to inertial navigation, accepting gradual drift. This scenario had been anticipated. Ukrainian planners had mapped Pol 21 transmitters months earlier and designed the final approach assuming GPS denial. At 6:51 AM, onboard cameras began identifying visual landmarks, refinery towers, piers, storage tanks, and coastal infrastructure. Pattern-matching algorithms corrected accumulated navigation errors by comparing live imagery with stored reference data. Lead elements transitioned to terminal guidance, using the facility itself as a navigation reference. At 6:53 AM, the first drone struck the main export manifold, detonating its 40-kilogram warhead. Pressurized oil erupted and atomized into an explosive cloud. Seconds later, another drone struck a tanker's pump room. Additional drones destroyed loading arms, storage tanks, pipelines, and nearby buildings in rapid succession. By 6:55 AM, the Tuapse terminal was engulfed in fire. Thick black smoke rose into the sky. The facility, which analysts estimate handles roughly 8% of Russia's seaborne crude exports, was effectively knocked offline. Taken together, damage and disruption have been estimated by some assessments at roughly $1.3 billion. Today's operation demonstrated that in modern warfare, cost, physics, and planning can outweigh raw firepower. Low-cost drones forced high-end fighters, missiles, and electronic warfare systems into losing equations. Ukraine achieved its objective. Russia was forced to absorb the consequences. Whether defenses can adapt fast enough remains uncertain, but the exchange exposed a growing advantage for low-cost systems against high-end interceptors. Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more updates.